What is up, YouTube? It is Maximus MMA, bringing you another prediction video for UFC. This time we've got a real big one, UFC 321, Aspinall versus Gane in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi in particular. Very excited for this card. We've got a lot of great matchups. Obviously, Heavyweight Championship of the world on the line. So yeah, let's just dive straight into this. I guess last week I did make my predictions. Tough card to call. Um, Koev lost, who I was confident in, but I did call the main event correctly with Allen and big upsets. That felt good. As far as UFC 321 is concerned, like I said, let's actually jump straight into it this time. Starting off, we've got some ladies, Jacqueline Amarim versus Mizuki Inoue. In full transparency, when it comes to this low-level women's MMA, I have no clue who this woman is. She's been in the UFC. It looks like she lost to Orlando Lemos, which is notable. Um, Amarim, she's actually been on a pretty nice win streak. She's beaten some relatively good fighters. Lost Sam Hughes via decision. And yeah, so I really don't want to spend much time on this fight. I'm taking Amarim. Been in the UFC more recently, at least, and Inoue hasn't been fighting in many years. I'm not picking a girl like that, so we're going with Amarim. Probably by decision. Next up, fights I got a little more insight in. Azat Maxim versus Mitch Raposo. Interesting fight. Mitch Raposo got into the UFC and hasn't looked great. I mean, he lost to Andre Lima. I guess that was a split decision, but I thought he lost pretty clearly. Granted, it was actually relatively close. I do remember that fight. And Sumaderji, he's a good fighter, tricky guy to deal with, very lengthy striking on the outside. Mitch Raposo can get the job done. Now he's against Azat Maxim, who at one point had some hype in the UFC. A lot of that probably being because he's from Kazakhstan, and fighters in that region of the world for some reason just tend to get hyped up a ton. But recently he's taken some losses to some real quality opposition. I mean, Charles Johnson is as tough as they come in this division. And keep in mind that Charles Johnson knocked out Joshua Van, who's now fighting for the title here relatively soon. So no real shame in a decision loss to Charles Johnson. He lost it to Gir Ulanbekov. He's obviously a quality fighter as well. Maxim coming in as a pretty big favorite. I'm going to roll with Maxim. I just think he's going to get the job done. Rich Raposo has done nothing, never blow me away. And Maxim, even though he's taken some losses in the UFC, been to the cream of the crop. Guys that are in the top 20, top 15, compared to Mitch Raposo, who has done nothing but lose and is nowhere close to that level of top 10, top 15. So, give me Maxim, probably by decision. Looks like that's the popular pick here. Moving on, we've got I don't want to say an interesting fight because I'm really not that interested in it. I know this fight's going to be probably pretty boring. We've got Chris Barnett, who is kind of a meme at this point. I mean, he's a 5'9" heavyweight who realistically should be a middleweight, but he's fat. And then we've got Hamdi Abdulahab, who just looks anything but impressive when you watch him fight. I mean, split decision with Dontel Mays. That's Dontel Mays we're talking about, guys. Jamal Pogues, another guy who's just, that was a very uninspiring performance when I watched that fight. And he lost a pitter-patter decision to Muhammad Usman, who just is not that good. So, I mean, Abdulahab just isn't good. But Chris Barnett is probably the most unserious heavyweight I've ever seen. And he's coming off a long layoff. And then the fight against Njeshiku, where he rolled his ankle, if I remember correctly. It was something of that nature, like he hurt himself before the fight even started and then just got beat up and just lost. Didn't really offer much at all in the fight. So now, if you're willing to bet minus 400 on Hamdi Abdul-Wahab, you need to call the gambling helpline right now, not tomorrow, not on Saturday. Right now, you have a problem. This is a fight that you would be insane to bet on. The only thing I could say that I could argue a bet on this fight would be over 1.5 rounds. I don't know what the line is on that, but I could definitely see this being kind of like a just a turtle fight. It's the terminology I just made up, but just two guys who are just gonna make it slow and ugly, and you're just gonna be like, why am I watching two walruses flop on top of each other? I mean, I'd like it if Abdul Wahab went out there and actually got like a ground and pound finish. That might be impressive. Chris Barnett maybe lands some crazy thing on the feet, but I'm guessing that this fight is either going to result in a knockout for Abdul Wahab via exhaustion from Chris Barnett, or I think this one's actually quite live to go to decision. Especially when we're talking heavyweights. I mean, this fight to me kind of just says decision. So I'm going Hamdi by a 30-27 or 29-28 snooze fest decision. Up next, we've got Jose Delgado against Nathaniel Wood. This is a good fight. Jose Delgado is undefeated in the UFC. He's only had 2 fights. Knocked out Connor Matthews, who has turned out to just really be nothing special. But a very impressive win against Haider Amil, where you took Haider Amil out in the first round. If you're Delgado, you got to feel good about that. Haider Amil was on a really nice win streak at the time, and I don't want to say he looked like a boogeyman, but I don't think a lot of people were lining up to want to fight Haider Amil, and Delgado made it look easy with a knee up the middle, if I recall. Yeah, knee to ground strikes, and then followed up and put him out bad. Daniel Wood, on the other hand, been around a long time, fought a lot of good names. Charles Jourdain, Andre Touchy-Feely win, lost to Naimov, then beat Pineda, and then Morgan Charrier. This is a fight where we're going to find out how good these guys are. Both of them probably have potential to be in the top 30, but only one of them is going to win, right? So, very tough fight to call. I can see the power and size of Delgado being a little bit too much, but Nathaniel Wood's damn good, man. I mean, he's no joke. I don't know who I want to go with here at all. This is a pretty 50-50 fight. I'm just going to go with Nathaniel Wood. Someone's telling me that I think that the experience in UFC, I think it's going to pay off. I think he's starting to find his stride. Morgan Charrier is not a bad fighter by any stretch. He's got an ugly record at 20-10, but he's a tough customer. And Delgado sparking Connor Matthews, again, that doesn't really blow me away, even though he looked great there. And then Haider Amil is a really early knockout. I mean, this is a fight that I envision going a couple rounds. So what does he look like against UFC level competition? Like Nathaniel Wood after a couple rounds? Could get a little dicey for him. So I'm just going to go with Nathaniel Wood, probably by decision. I think that's probably the call. People seem to agree if Wood gets it done, it'll be by decision. Delgado live for the KO. As he certainly is, but I'm going with Nathaniel Wood. Not super high confidence, but you got to make a pick, right? Then we've got a pretty, actually, way more interesting than the Barnett and Abdul Wahab fight. We've got a better heavyweight matchup. Not the best one on the card, but a better one. Walter Walker against Louis Sutherland. So Louis Sutherland was supposed to make his debut, I believe, a couple weeks back against Justin Tafa. Didn't happen. Now he gets a much tougher opponent as his debut in Walter Walker, who looked like the biggest bum on the planet. He lost to Lucas Brzeski. And that was a year and 6 months ago. And yes, Walter Walker has looked in way better shape physically. He's performed much better since then. But that is a loss that does concern me because Lucas Brzeski is genuinely the worst heavyweight I think I've ever seen in the UFC. I mean, he's like a MMA kickboxing teacher at like some random gym in I think Poland where like there's little kids and like moms like after their 9 to 5 going there, right? So if you're losing to a guy like that, I've got to hold it over you a little bit, right? I can't just let that go. I will say though, Walter Walker has had a mean heel hook since. I mean, doing that to Junior Tafa, I'm not really that impressed just because it's one of the Tafa brothers. Ground game doesn't exist. And you get a specialist like Walker with the heel hook. That's going to happen all day, especially in hindsight. Dontel Mays, unserious fighter. So again, really not that impressive to me. But the Kennedy and Jeshku win was impressive. I will say that. I believe in Jeshku was a bit of a favorite. He was on a nice streak, undefeated at heavyweight at the time. And then Walter Walker just came in there, got a hold of that heel hook, and just cranked it, and it was over quick. Now, I think that money lining somebody like Walter Walker after the way he looked a year and a half ago against Lucas Brzeski, that minus 340, you also need to call the gambling hotline. But see, this is nuts. Do I think there's a 91%? 9 out of 10 times his fight ends in a Walter Walker submission? No way. No way. I almost want to spite pick Louis Sutherland, who has a good amount of grappling. He doesn't look this jacked, though, in the UFC pictures I've seen, for what that's worth. I'm going to go with Walter Walker. I haven't seen enough of Sutherland to pick him here, but I would not be surprised at all if Walter Walker finds a way to lose this. If he goes out there and he dominates Sutherland or heel hooks him early again, now we've got a guy where it's like, okay, that Brzeski loss was 2 years ago, right? Maybe he really did turn a corner, but I'm not sold yet. He is still very young. He can definitely get better. Obviously, his brother Johnny Walker's been finding some success recently. He probably wants to keep that going. I'm going to say that he does. Probably by submission. I know I just said I don't think that happens 90% of the time, but Walter Walker, I feel like he's submission or bust, man. I mean, after this Brzeski bout, he's just... And if you watch the Njeku bout, when they were exchanging on the feet in that first 10 to 15 seconds, Walter Walker just put his head down and ran at him. I mean, there was no technique at all. There was real no entry. He just kind of stumbled across that leg, and I don't know, man. Against the higher level heavyweights, that's not going to fly. I think it's going to fly, though, against Louis Sutherland. Walter Walker by submission, but I don't love it. He's got to prove it one more time. Then we got Matthias Rubeski against Ludwig Klein. Interesting matchup here. Rubeski, always a fan favorite. Puts on nothing but just banger fights. Coming off a loss to Chris Duncan after he had that split decision win over Middlebeck Oralby in a big upset where Oralby got beat to a pulp in his face. See, Rubeski, he wears damage, though, bad. You got a guy like Ludwig Klein who was on a roll, had some big wins. Ignacio Homendez is a good win. Jay Cunningham, Tago Moises. I don't know if that's really that good of a win. And then Roosevelt Roberts, also really don't know if that's that good of a win. But he got completely exposed and dominated by Mateus Gamrot. It wasn't even really competitive. And obviously we just saw Gamrot get dispatched of by Charlie O. MMA math, though, it doesn't necessarily work that way. I mean, there's no real MMA math here, but it's an interesting fight. I just don't like the way that Ludwig Klein was dominated the last time that I saw him out, so I'm going to go for Becky here. He just fought Chris Duncan. He probably needs some more time off. He's been in a lot of wars, man, in a very short amount of time. Still going to get on the pick to get the job done, though. I think this fight's probably going to go long, but I could see a later stage finish for Rebecca. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he finishes Ludwig Klein by knockout. Be a ground and pound, but not the most confident pick. I just know this fight's probably going to be a bit of a war, and I'm going to take the guy that I know is willing to make it a war consistently and is not just going to accept bottom position like Klein did against Gamrot, where he just got beat up and honestly looked like he didn't want to be in there towards the end of that fight. Next up, Ikram Aliskerov against Junyoung Park, the Iron Turtle. It's interesting to see everybody's all over Aliskerov. I know that Junyoung Park kind of has a cult-like following. Another just stain in my memory is this Muniz loss because, God, Andre Muniz is so not good. So losing to him just not a good look, man. But beat Brad Tavares, who, and is that really that good of a win? And then Ismail Nardiev, which is that good of a win? Aliskerov, when he wins big, right? I mean, we're talking first round knockout against Warley Alves, Phil Hawes, and Muniz. Bum Muniz, terrible fighter. But got caught with that uppercut against Robert Whitaker. Really snapped his head back and got finished pretty quick there. Would have been nice to see that fight go a little longer, but hey, you get caught early, you get caught early, right? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. I'm definitely going with Alaskarov here. I just like his game better. Park doesn't have the best head movement. I think he's there to get hit. Not the fastest guy in the world either, and a guy that loses to Andre Muniz by split decision, and Alaskarov, even after a loss, comes in and does what you should do to Muniz if you're a real middleweight contender. I'm going to go with Alaskarov all day. We're using MMA math on this one. He knocks out Muniz. He doesn't. Park's getting knocked out. Probably early. First round or two. Probably first round. Up next, Kilian Salkield against Nasrat Haqparast. Very interesting fight. Kind of a let's see how good you are matchup for Kilian Salkield. Obviously ranked number 67 and fighting a 21st guy in the world. It's a big jump up in competition, right? I mean, he was fighting Anshul Jubli. Don't even get me started. Anshul Jubli. I'm pretty sure he was going to beat Makhachev or something. Yeah. Beat up Gage Young, who actually ended up getting a UFC win, I believe, on a Contender Series. That was a good fight between two young guys. Went out and absolutely smoked Jubli. Do not redeem it! And then Yanal Ashmus won a decision against him. Kilian Salkield's a good prospect. He's very young. 25 years old, almost 26. And he's taking on Nasrat Haqparast, who's been on a roll in the UFC. Some decent wins. Ribovics, Jared Gordon, Malarkey, Canonias. I mean, been around the block for a little bit, and he's 30 years old. He should be in his fighting prime right now. It's a tough one to call. Because part of me wants to believe in Salkield, but I think I'm going to lean with Nasrat Haqparast, especially when we're in the Middle East. I'm going to go with Haqparast to win, probably decision. I think it's a pretty fair call. I think it'll be a good fight, though. I think this will be a learning moment for Kilian Salkield. I don't think he gets finished here, but I think it's something that you look back in a couple years, and he probably grows from this. So, hey, and if he wins, he's getting thrown right to the dogs at middleweight. Because then there's going to be no more Anshul Jubli easy fights, right? So, good luck, Salkield. I'm rooting for him, but I just think it might be a little too much too soon. Then we got the main card opener, which this fight I'm very excited for. Alexander Rakic against Azamat Murzakanov. I'm going to be taking Azamat Murzakanov by likely decision, but I certainly could see a knockout. He does have a knockdown at least in every single one of his UFC fights. And this is one of my more confident picks in the card, simply because I believe that momentum is real. And when you've got a guy like Rakic who has not won a fight since 2021, I want to take the guy that's done absolutely nothing but win. And he's done it at a high level. I mean, Murzakanov, it's not like he's 2 fights in the UFC. He's won 5 fights in the UFC. Against Dustin Jacoby, Menefield, Ribeiro, right? These aren't world beaters, but they're guys, right? They're somebody, and can they hold, are they the same level of Rakic? Probably not. Jacoby, arguably. That'd actually probably be an interesting matchup between Jacoby and Rakic, but I find a hard time picking a guy who hasn't won a fight since 2021, and admittedly has only lost to some of the best the division has to offer, but he loses, right? So he's clearly not at that level. Murzakanov could potentially get to that level. He's already 36. It's now or never for him. This is the run. I'm really surprised the odds are that even, simply just based off the momentum alone. I figured Murzakanov would come into this fight minus 200 or so. Might be a little wide, but there's a big size advantage. But Murzakanov is always the smaller guy, and some guys are just good at punching up, right? Mike Tyson, not saying that Azamat's Mike Tyson, but he was just used to punching up, and Rakic has been fighting these tall guys, dude. I mean, I just think it might throw him off fighting guys 5'10". Is there a world where Rakic puts him up against Cage and kind of beats him up and wears on him? I guess so, but when have we seen that? Maybe we have, and I just don't remember. But I mean, I remember he had a little bit of success against Prochazka, but then he got knocked out. And then Magomed, he just kind of lost a tit-for-tat decision. I'm going Azamat Murzakanov pretty confidently by KO or decision. If you're going to bet, I just take the money line. That's actually a pretty confident pick. I would be very surprised if Murzakanov loses because, again, Rakic just hasn't done anything but lose in the last 3.5 years, 4 years. I'm not taking him to beat the undefeated professional Azamat Murzakanov. Murzakanov by KO or decision. Confident pick. Next up, more heavyweights. Alexander Volkov against Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida, I believe, is a former middleweight. He's a full-size heavyweight, though. He's 6'3". He's a big man. Going up against an absolute freakishly big man, Alexander Volkov, who is listed at 6'7", but I've heard that supposedly he's like 6'8". Whatever. Big guy. He looks big on TV and in a cage. Volkov should be on a win streak right now, but he was robbed against Ciryl Gane after a big upset win against Pavlovich. This was just disgusting. Volkov won that fight. It was a close fight, but he won. So, I mean, it's very interesting because Volkov really could be fighting for the title right now in a rematch, but not the way things went. Now he draws Jailton Almeida, who's ranked number 3 in the world, opposite Volkov's number 2, who has looked pretty good at heavyweight. Right? Like, he's got a real ground game. He couldn't get Derek Lewis out of there, which was pretty surprising. And then lost to Curtis Blades. Pretty bad. I do remember that fight. That was bad performance. But then he beat Romanov, who's just a fat guy, pretty much. And then Spivak. I remember Spivak, like, I think they had a grappling exchange, and then Spivak, like, landed on top of him, and it was a little testy, but Almeida showed his class, showed his composure. Probably grew from that fight and ended up finishing it. I'm honestly surprised to see him as a pretty big favorite here against Volkov. I just think that Volkov's the more proven entity, and his grappling's gotten better. And, like, is Jailton Almeida just going to roll through Volkov? I don't think so. And if they're on the feet, I mean, there's absolutely nothing that tells me that Almeida is going to have anything for Volkov. I mean, Volkov is a legitimate kickboxer with power on the feet. And yeah, dude. Like, honestly, I think this should be near pick'em. Maybe Volkov a slight favorite. So pretty surprised to see Almeida as the favorite. Tapology agrees. It's pick'em. I'm going with Volkov, probably by KO. We've seen Almeida crumble under the pressure before. I think Volkov's due. I think he has a little good karma coming to him after that Gane robbery. Give me Volkov by knockout. Couldn't really tell you around, but I think he'll probably get him out of there. I mean, or you could win it a competitive decision, but if I'm Volkov, I'm not going to another decision. Because, yeah, it didn't work out for him last time. So be careful, Volkov. We're rooting for you. We being me. Up next, Mario Baptista against Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar coming off that loss to Merab. Very close fight, but Merab with a bit of showboating and some his amazing cardio got the job done. Mario Baptista, on the other hand, coming off a win against Ricky Simone, who is that's actually aged pretty well. Jose Aldo, where he basically just avoided a fist fight with Jose Aldo and decided to hold him up against the cage. And yeah, Mario Baptista, he still gets death threats, he says to this day, about that fight. Not going to say that I condone that, but, like, come on, Mario. What he did to an MMA legend like Jose Aldo is honestly just disgusting. Like, fight the guy. It's Jose Aldo, dude. We don't want to see him get held up against the cage and see you knee him to the thigh. Then he had a very big win against Patchy Mix, who has turned out to be a complete bust. Right, like, when this happened, it was like, wow, Mario Bautista, okay, that's a big win for him. Now, it's just like, okay, well, Patchy Mix, like, did crack or something and got slow overnight, right? Like, I don't know what happens. Nobody does. No, what happened, sorry. So that's probably why these odds are so wide. Because like, who has Mario Bautista really beat? No, he's a good fighter, man. He's a good fighter. But Umar Nurmagomedov, obviously Khabib in his corner. It's hard not to pick him here. He was a big favorite against Merab as well. It seems like they're destined to rematch here, assuming Merab can defend his belt again. Going Umar, probably by decision. I don't see him finishing Batista. He might try. I mean, he's going to try, but Batista's good, man. He's going to be game. I can see this fight being closer than people think. I could see Batista even taking a round off Umar, but if I had to really guess, I'd say 30-27 Umar. Makes it probably look pretty easy. He's probably just going to be a step ahead and just be edging out the rounds pretty consistently. So give me Umar by decision. And gets him right back into title contention. Up next, the vacant UFC Strawweight Championship of the World for the ladies. Virna Jandiroba against Mackenzie Dern. This is a fight that I really don't understand the odds here. Yes, Jandiroba lost to Mackenzie Dern back in 2020. But since then, lost to Amanda Ribas, beat Angela Hill, beat Marina Rodriguez, beat Lupi, beat Amanda Lemos. That was a great performance. Zhang Yaonan, another dominant performance for her against Mackenzie Dern, who just eye test wise, like when you watch Mackenzie Dern, can you really tell me that this is the best female fighter in the world at 115 pounds? I don't know, man. I mean, maybe she is. Maybe she is, but I don't know, dude. I mean, I'll tell you, she's tough as hell. And she deserves credit for that. And she's talented. She's a talented girl. But when you see her strike, it's just like, she just kind of goes guns blazing. And it just looks very amateurish. And but it's somewhat effective. Like, it's honestly very weird for me just to envision Amanda Ribas being the champion. I mean, she beat Amanda Ribas. That was a good performance. Beat Lupi as well, who, in my opinion, Lupi's overrated. But a good win for her. You know, lost to Lemos. Got beat up by Andrade. Also beat Angela Hill. I actually did not know that. And lost to Zhang Yaonan. So, you know, this is one of those where, like, and obviously she beat Virna the first go around. Thing is, since their fight, I just think that Jandiroba's gotten better than Mackenzie Dern has. And I really think that Jandiroba is pretty decent. I just see her being able to win the scrambles on the ground and end up on top and land punches. I mean, Jandiroba is one of those girls where she actually does throw punches when she's on the ground, right? She's not just going to straight turn it into a BJJ wrestling match. And, I mean, what? Mackenzie Dern's going to spark out on the feet? Come on. Come on. That's not happening. I'm going Jandiroba. I think these odds are crazy. I've seen wider than what Tapology's saying here, but Jandiroba, as far as women's MMA goes, not a bad side to go on. And it seems like people are agreeing because, yeah, I actually did not know Tapology was this wide. But, I mean, there's nothing that tells me since their last fight, like if that fight never happened, why would I think that Dern's going to win this? Especially at these odds. I mean, like, are people just betting on her because they find her attractive? And, you know, like, I could see some screw around here, though, with the close decision. I mean, who does the UFC want as their champion of the women's? They want a woman who is objectively attractive, going to shake her ass a little bit. Or do they want the cross-eyed Virna Jandiroba, who looks like fighting's her only option, respectfully? So, yeah. I'm going Jandiroba, though. I think she's going to find a way. But don't be surprised if there's a weird decision here. I hope that there's a finish, just so there is no drama. But I'm going to go Jandiroba, probably by decision. Up next, the main event of the evening, or late afternoon if you're in the United States. Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. Tom Aspinall, obviously a heavy favorite here. Gane has come up short in all of his title chances. I don't know how he keeps getting them. I really don't. Lost to Ngannou. Almost got put out by Tai Tuivasa, but then came back and won that fight after getting dropped pretty bad. Lost to John Jones in one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen in my entire life. John Jones just literally walked at him and just took his back and then choked him out. And looked like Ciryl Gane had never even done Jiu-Jitsu 101. Didn't even attempt to fight the choke. It was very weird. And then knocked out Spivak, who it's like, okay, like if you line up what Ciryl Gane looks like next Spivak, it's like, okay, dude. Like, yeah, I'd hope he's going to beat up the polar bear. And then we've got Volkov. And a fight that I was talking about earlier, I don't think that Gane won. And he looked very flat after a pretty long layoff. I will say, though, in this training camp, Ciryl Gane in the pre-fight pictures looks absolutely jacked and shredded. He looks like a superhero. I know that he does some acting over in France for some films that I'll never watch. So it makes sense he looks like a superhero. He's a good fighter. He's a very good fighter. But Tom Aspinall is just a different animal, man. I mean, we're talking about a guy who just has first round finish after first round finish after first round finish. I mean, it's something to see. I mean, 45 seconds, minute 35, 1 minute. Oh, sorry, 1 minute into the second round. That was the only time you ever went to the second round, correct. Spivak, half a round. Volkov, who we talked about earlier, is a great fighter. Finished him in the first round. Curtis Blades, he threw a kick, stepped back, knee blew out. This is kind of a no contest, in my opinion. Even though that Blades won, but who knows what would have happened in that fight, right? And then Marcin Tybura absolutely blew through him. Punched him right in the nose. He folded, this ground and pound, out. Sergey Pavlovich. This was surprising to me because at this point, right, this is when Pavlovich was just looking like a world beater, and I thought he was just going to win. And then all the credit to Tom. Tom beat him to the punch. He ate a good punch himself, and then the next exchange, he just landed a big one, and Pavlovich went out bad. And then Curtis Blades made it look easy. Another minute-long fight. You're looking at a guy that just knocks everybody out in the first minute. And Ciryl Gane got finished in, what was it, like 2 or 3 minutes against John Jones? I don't really care. It was early. Yeah, man, I'm going Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has to win. Tom Aspinall has to win because then that opens up the door for Tom Aspinall against Alex Pereira at the White House. It's the fight to make. Tom Aspinall's got to get through Gane, though, first. He says he's not overlooking him. I hope that's true. I do believe him. Gane's going to be game, but the UFC can't have Gane win, man. I mean, what happens if Ciryl Gane wins the heavyweight belt here, and then John Jones says, hey, guys, I'm back. I'm no longer having Hasbulla play on my lap, and I want to get back in there against Alex Pereira in a super fight, which would be a heavyweight, or, you know, a catch weight. That would be above 205, obviously, the heavyweight. How can Gane be the champion if John Jones comes back and fights, and John Jones dispatched of him just so easily, right? So that would just cause this weird buildup where it'd just be a disaster. Tom Aspinall's the UFC champ. John Jones retired. No ifs, ands, or buts. Tom Aspinall's a champion. He's going to prove it on Saturday by knockout. Probably extremely early. First round knockout. I could see a submission, but I think that's less likely because stick with what's working if you're Aspinall, and I think he's going to want to prove a point. John Jones made him look easy by submission. I think Tom Aspinall goes out there, makes it look easy via KO, gets on the mic, hopefully calls out Pereira. And hopefully we see that for the White House card. In a perfect world, that's what I see happening, and I hope happens. So it's a quick rundown on the card. We're going with Amarim, low confidence, Maxim, medium confidence, Abdulwahab, very low confidence, Nathaniel Wood, low confidence, Walter Walker versus Louis Sutherland, average confidence, I guess, but relatively low. Rebecki, medium confidence. I do think he'll get it done. Aliskerov, high confidence. Nazareth Hakpras, low confidence. Azamat Mirzakhanov, lock of the card for me. As far as value goes, this is a very confident pick. I'd be surprised to see Azamat lose here. Volkov, medium confidence. Umar, high confidence pick. Vernon Janaroba, medium to high. It's in that mid-range. It's worth a look. And Tom Aspinall, extreme confidence. If Tom Aspinall loses. MMA community, okay, is going to be in for crap. That's going to be messed up. Yeah, very excited. See what happens. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have a super confident pick, love to hear it. And yeah, until next time.